What's up, guys? Today, we're going to talk about the ways that you can actually make money being an artist. And I'm talking about DJs, I'm talking about music producers, I'm talking about visual artists, photographers, models, actors. Like, when everyone talks about an artist being such an unstable job, it is because the competition is really high. Like, anything glamorous, 99% of people are going to fail. And then, like, the top 1% of talented people are who are actually going to do the work and participate in the industry. Like I had one of my friends say to me that all the competition starts at the top 1%. So what does he mean by that? 99% of people fail. People try modeling in high school and being a rapper, being a DJ, but it's really only the 1%, and you kind of have to qualify. It's almost like making like an NBA qualifier or something. You have to qualify, and then once you qualify, you can actually start to work. And then even within that 1%, there's going to be like different levels of fame and money and everything you can achieve. So let's go through like the three ways. Now, there's three ways that artists really earn their money, and one is pretty much by being the face of the brand, being a celebrity. Two is you're selling your skills. You're kind of like more of a technician, and then three is like you don't sell your skills and your talent, you sell your management ability and your business ability. So let's go through the first one. So for example, let's take like I don't know, like the K-pop group like Blackpink, for example. So how do they make money? They make money off primarily touring, merch, brand deals, club appearances. You can even if you start falling off in Hollywood, you can even start doing like kids' birthdays and stuff, or like bar mitzvahs. That's not an uncommon thing for money. They'll pay you like 30 to like 60 grand for like a birthday appearance for some kid's birthday. You can do that. And what you're doing at that level is you're selling your performance, you're selling your image, and you're selling your overall celebrity. It helps if you're good looking that way, because when people pay to see like something incredible, they expect this person to come out. You don't have to be like the best looking. If you're a guy, I think there's like you can kind of get away with a bit more, like, but you have to be like reasonably good looking, or at least marketable. Like Psy from like You Did Gangnam Style, he's not like the best looking dude, but he's very marketable looking and relatable. I don't know, like Ed Sheeran, not to knock Ed Sheeran, but like he's not like. But the better looking you are as a guy, the easier it'll be for you to like make it in Hollywood or whatever, or at least like kind of like photogenic or have like a look, right? So, yeah. So when everyone thinks of being a star, they always think about the star on the stage. They always think about Taylor Swift doing her like stadium tour or whatever. But they never really think about part two, which is everyone who produces Beyonce or Taylor Swift. So level two is like you're pretty much like a talent technician. That's what I would call it. So these are your stage crew. These are your songwriters. These are your ghostwriters. These are your producers. These are your video directors. These are the people who like color grade and edit and like do animation, like me. Like we're essentially support staff for tier one. Now the fun thing about this side of the industry, which I didn't really expect, Shoot for the Moon, even if you miss, you might land among the stars. Landing among the stars means that like, okay, you're not on stage DJing, but you might get to go backstage and go in the green room and hang out. You might get to hang out with him on stage while he's DJing. You might get to ride on the tour bus if you're doing the video. You might get to ride on the jets with these guys. Like they always have an entourage everywhere they go, because when the companies get this big, it's really hard for them to maintain it on their own. So they always have a team. You could be this guy's like barber. You could be this guy's like yeah. So for every team behind that, you're doing stuff like that. And there's other ways to make money as a talented technician. Like you can do sync deals, you can write for commercials, you can do streaming, you can teach. Even you can teach people how to do it, like so I think if you don't make it in tier one and you're selling a celebrity, or let's say you started as a celebrity and you kind of fell off, like on like Chameleonaire or whatever, or like any of these artists who started really famous and then they kind of take a step back, or even like 50 Cent, for example. Like he doesn't really tour anymore, but he does a lot of like two and three now, because he's not there's rap's a young man's game. Like no one really wants to see people over the age of 40 rapping on stage when the audience is like 15 years old. So they'll have that. And honestly, this is like kind of the part about being an artist that I think a lot of people, the general public, doesn't really understand. And I didn't really know until I really got into it, because everyone just sees what's on the surface, which is like Kanye West and like Taylor and like, I don't know, like Doja Cat and like all these big artists on stage every day, Sabrina Carpenter, like all the stars. But you can like backup dancer Sabrina Carpenter and go on tour with her. I've had friends like backup dance for Justin Bieber and stuff and go on tour and kind of like pseudo live Justin Bieber's life in a way. They don't get paid as much as him, but they still might get a brand deal. They still might get to teach. They still might maybe not get a club appearance. You're not that famous. Like no one's gonna pay like $10,000 for you to come to a club, but like you'll get to go to the club and you'll get a lot of free stuff probably, and you'll get to kind of ride the train. Because the truth is, not everyone can be the star. Like to be the star, to be like a Bieber, like you need to have like the looks of a pretty boy star. You need to be able to sing. You need to be able to dance. You need to be able to carry the show. Like you are the person that everyone's paying money. Like the dancers, the technicians, we can all be swapped out. Like we're not that. That's why we get paid less, because we can't do what they do. Like, if you took one of those backup dancers or one of the backup singers and put them on stage, no one's gonna pay like $200 a ticket to see that, or if not $1,000, right? Like, they want to see the star. But to produce these stars, like everybody has to contribute a lot. Like even like DJs and everything that write all, like even Deadmau5, for example, writes all of his own music. He still has mix and master engineers. He still has people co-writing with him. He still has collaborators. It's not all in his and he's a guy who like does all of his own stuff too. Like he's not like there's a lot of other EDM producers who don't. So even for someone like him who does his own stuff, he still has a lot of help. You know, still has a team, still has management. You know, so a lot of people do that, and so I think for a lot of people, if you don't make it in one and you can make it in two, you can still make what I call like a working artist income, which is still like a pretty good income. It probably pays as much as like a corporate job or whatever else you'd be doing with your life. Still earn a good living and still get to experience a lot of that without as much pressure as the person in front. Because the person in front, they're quarterback, they have all the pressure. We're just linebackers. We just support them. We're still on the field with them every day. And you might even have to work on their schedule, to be honest, but you still get to kind of like ride that train and be part of that football team, right? Like not everyone's going to be quarterback, not everyone's going to be like the star of the show, right? So we need a lot of people to do this, you know. For like the Star Wars movie, there might be like 50 actors, and then there might be like 5,000 people, like 1,000 VFX 3D artists, 1,000 crew, management, all sorts of stuff like that. So if you don't make it as number one, I recommend shooting for number two. And really the test of number one is, will people pay to see you perform, or will people pay to be around your celebrity? Like, are you like that sexy? Are you like that charismatic? Are you that pretty? And then the actual litmus test of if you belong in category two or not is that, are you talented and skilled enough where people will pay you for your talented skills? Like, will people pay to like have you write music or mix and master for them? Will people pay for your music videos? Will people pay for your talent, your creative direction, your taste, your technical ability, your experience as a creative? Like, will people pay for these things? And like that will put you in category two. And if you can live off that, because that's what sort of like Scott Galloway was talking about. He's like, as artists, he's like, if you can't like pretty much get a full-time income off it after like 2 to 4 years, like you're probably not in the top 1%. Because like, and even in the top 1%, that's pretty much like, that doesn't make you a millionaire. That probably just means that you're paying all your bills off it, doing it full time, so you can continue to get better. Because the truth about all this type of stuff is that if you're working a full-time job and you're trying to do this on the side, you're competing against guys who are going to do 40 to 60 hours a week against you. And if it takes 10,000 hours to master anything, this is one thing I learned recently, because recently, like, I'm hanging out with a bunch of music producers. I went to a film festival with a bunch of film guys. I met a bunch of like VJs. I've been talking to like a lot of really high-level artists about what it really takes to do this. The first thing I noticed is that everyone here has done minimum 10,000 hours to get this good, and to hit that 1%. And then the second thing that I noticed is that no one's doing this shit part-time. Like, everyone has... Like, you can't compete at that level and work a full-time job and do it like a couple of hours on the weekend. Like, it's not, it's like versus guys who are doing it 40 to 60 hours a week and they're talented. Like, it's just not enough hours in the week to really make this pop off. So, like, that's the second thing I noticed, is that like all the really high level people I know, it's their full-time job. And then on top of that too, like sometimes they're not even doing 60 hours a week. Like, like one of my friends recently, I was watching him do this thing. He was working for 4 or 5 days straight, sleeping a few hours a night, like crazy deadlines. Like, that's like, he probably did like 160 hours in like under a week or some crazy amount, like, probably like 20 hours, 20, like 80 hours in 4 days. Like, that's crazy, right? So just keep that in mind when people even want to talk about it. And then being number one on top of that is even more insane, because like category one, where you're the artist or celebrity, like you have to physically be places, right? So you're the one, you have to be at the club, you have to look good during the photo shoots, you have to be on tour, you have to be on stage, you're carrying the whole performance. Like, the backup dancers can screw up, the band can screw up, the DJs can screw up, but like, well, DJs can't even screw up, but like, whoever the person is singing the songs, like Taylor Swift on stage, she could not screw up. Like, it'll ruin the whole performance, and we make mistakes on stage, obviously, everybody does, but generally speaking, it needs to be like a perfect performance at least 95% of the time, or else people will start saying she's falling off. Even if it's a mid-performance, like, people don't like that. So the third area is management, business. So in business, you understand talent, you understand creativity, but you're not an artist. You're not selling your creative ability. What you're selling is your management skills, your numbers ability, your logistical skills, your organizational skills, also your people skills, because you have to go out and convince all these people. You have to convince artists to want to sign to you. You have to convince collaborations to occur. You have to convince people to hop in the studio. You have to call in a lot of favors. You got to convince people to invest money. So this is like the CEO business mind. Like, this is where the managers come in, labels, A&R, tour managers, logistics people. These are people who are they're not selling their talent, and their taste is not their capability. What they're doing is they're selling their business skill. So if you're an artist. If you're not capable of being an art, like Lou Pearlman who did the Backstreet Boys, that guy was like some 55-year-old guy, like fat, like not sexy, like he's not gonna be number one. He's not a singer, not a songwriter, not gonna be number two. He's gonna be number three, which is management. And you know what? Good management. We need talent across the board in all these areas, right? We need a Taylor Swift. We need Taylor Swift's production team, songwriters, producers, video people. We need stage performance, backup dancers, and then we need the management, the label A&Rs, the financiers, the investors. We need all of these things to make it happen, right? So, like, you know, like when I talk to young people about like trying to become an artist and everything like that, they're always just thinking about number one. They're just being like that really is like shoot for the moon. I want to be the moon. And the real truth is that most of us are not going to make that. I hope you do, but if you don't, just know that there are a lot of other jobs in the industry that you can do to earn a living, and that might pay like a lot more than a corporate job. Like Scooter Braun is a manager. Like, he's not an artist, man. Scooter Braun is like richer than all of us, so it's kind of like it is possible to make a lot of money. And if you are really good at two or three, if you're like producing songs like Stargate or any of these huge producers, or I don't know, like, you know, like Metro Boomin, or like, you know, Kanye was producing for Jay-Z for a long time. He was signed to Rock Nation, so it's kind of like, it's all possible. And then sometimes as well too, like you can actually move in between these groups. Like, you know, Jay Chou was a songwriter. They didn't think he was good looking, but he was songwriting for all these artists in Taiwan. And then they put him on and became huge. Like Frank Ocean was a songwriter. Quite a few, like Sia is a songwriter. She was just a song. She didn't think she could be, because she's like a bit older and she's an older woman, and she didn't think she could be like an Ariana Grande. But you know what though? People still loved her. People still loved her singing ability. There are a lot of artists that break through. Like Neo was a songwriter. They didn't think he was like good looking enough, and I think he's a decently good looking guy, you know. But like, they didn't think he was good looking enough to become like a pop star. Now he's one of the biggest pop stars in the world. So it's like you can move in between it. I think what's more rare is actually being like a manager and then moving into a number one. But like if you're like in area two where you're like, you know, a songwriter, and if you can also sing, like, you know, because the songwriting is honestly the hardest part in my opinion, because that's really what's going to go viral. And then also being able to perform it, because performance is a totally different skill. It's what Chris Brown says. It's one thing to write the song. Okay, now can you perform it on stage in front of like 500,000 people and like crush the performance? And can you dance while you're singing it? And do you have the athleticism? And do people like the way you look? And like, do the fans love you? Like, that's a whole other skill that you need to develop. And like, you know, K-pop training groups will, you know, literally put girls through military boot camp just to give them the skills to be able to do that, right? So, yeah, so that's sort of like my 2 cents for all the young people out there trying to do this. You know, like I gave one of my friends a piece of advice recently where he said he wanted to do rap, and he says, I want to produce at the same time. And I said, well, if you only have a year to do this, you probably don't really have time to get that good of production anyways. So it's like, because you can't split, like in one, if you do 1 year full time, that's 2,000 hours. So if you're going to do 1,000 hours production, 1,000 hours rap, you're pretty much like halving out the amount of time you'll have to actually work on your rap. So I said, you should just buy beats and then just try to do 100 tracks in a year to see if you can qualify for the 1%, and see if people like your music. And even if you don't, like, like another thing I want to talk about with goals in music is like how much, like, what are your actual goals? Everyone's like, I want to be Kanye. I'm like, okay, well, let's there's a million steps before becoming Kanye, so let's break that down. Like, how much money do you want to make? Do you want to make this as a hobby? Do you want to have artistic expression? Do you want to be more commercial? How much money do you want to make doing this? Like, if you just want to like be really artistic and you don't really care about making money, you can just do this as a hobby. Like, that's what I'd say to you. If you're trying to become a commercial artist, you need to kind of like make a pretty current sound, or like try to predict the next sound, which is even harder. Like Travis Scott, that was even harder to do. And then you need to perform it and write it and tour, and you're not gonna be working a job while doing this. You're gonna be giving it all up. Like, these are really big bets, and you have to kind of be honest with yourself. Am I exceptional enough to qualify for the 1%? And if you're gonna do it full time, like if you're just gonna do it as a hobby, it doesn't matter. Like, you can enjoy music your whole life and creativity and be a photographer and shoot videos. You can do that your whole life if you want. YouTube on this you know, on the side. Like, I'm running this channel. Like, I'm not a YouTuber, man. I'm just doing this when I have time, but when I have ideas to talk about. But you know, like, this isn't my full-time job, obviously, but like, you know, but I can do it a bit on the side, you know. But my full-time job is being a 3D artist, so it's like I do that like full-time for almost 7 years now, right? So yeah, I just want people to know, like think about your goals, like kind of logically break down the structure of you and your artistic goals and what you want to do with it, and then use that to sort of create your roadmap, and figure out what you're good at. And you might end up having to switch roles. You might start off as a rapper, and then you're not really that good. I met a ton of guys like that. They start off as rappers, not really good as rappers. They end up in video production. They end up in production, or like doing the music or doing the visuals or even management, like, and and also being an artist initially will help you sort of like understand the other artists that you're working with. So it's almost like basketball tryouts. Like everyone plays, like you can qualify for the NBA when you're young. You don't make it, you can coach. You've helped other people achieve those things. Like not everyone's gonna be like a talented star. You could even get injured and then not be able to do it anymore, and then go coach other people so you can still participate in the industry. So these things are all possible. Yeah. So this, I want people to be sort of realistic about this. But yeah, all the competition starts at the top 1%. So it's like you need to ask yourself, like, am I talented enough to qualify for the NBA or whatever you're trying to do? And then do I have enough hours realistically to do this? And like, how much time and money am I willing to sacrifice? Because like, if it's about money, like you can just get a job and like just. I'm not saying like I don't know what your skills are, but you could get like if you just applied for jobs for a year, so you could get some type of job, and at least by the end of the year you'd be guaranteed that income and maybe something on your resume. If you're more fortunate and you had a corporate job lined up, that could have been like a 6-figure salary if you like I don't know, maybe like went to university and have some special skill or whatever, you work at a hospital, like whatever else you do. Like to give that up for a year straight to chase your passion, like you have to be kind of certain because you're giving up a whole year worth of salary. If you're younger, it's okay, but as we get older, like I think it becomes less and less realistic, not because you're older, but because I feel in life we're given a lot of chances and time when we're younger, and as we get older, like priorities shift. People get married, people have kids, like people don't have as much time and like lack of responsibility to sort of take these things on, right? So I just want people to sort of think about it. And if you're really, really young watching this, like there's probably going to be like the first 5 to 7,000 hours, which might take you from like, let's say you're 15 and producing music to your early 20s. Like, you're just producing music on the weekend or after school, that's your hobby. And then by the time you're in your early 20s, like Metro Boomin was like that. Like by the time he went to, college, like first year college, like he was already making trips to Atlanta. I think he was living in Kansas or like St. Louis or something like that. And already producing for a bunch of big, and then at that point in time, it was like, okay, I'm already making money doing this, and like I could risk doing the degree, or I could risk not getting to like produce for like Future and like Gucci Mane and everything. So at that point in time, it makes sense for him to drop out of school. But like, you sort of need the audience and the market to validate that they actually want you to do this. So that's another thing too. It's like it's like Scott Galloway says, in your first 2 years of doing it, like if you're trying to make money doing this and it's not just some kind of like artistic project you're doing by yourself, like if people aren't hiring you and paying you money, you're probably not qualifying. And then by year 4, if you're doing it full time, you're still not really making a full-time income off it, you're probably not at the competition level required to actually do it. Because for every kid out there trying to do it, there's already some kid out there who's like a superstar, who's like crushing it, who might even be younger than you, right? So they have time on their side and they're talented, and because of that, more people will be willing to invest money in them. They'll get more artist deals. Like everybody wants to catch that stock before it blows up, right? So talent works the same way. So these are sort of like my thoughts on just being an artist for this long, and awareness, and like I did a clothing brand for 7 years, so I originally wanted to be a hotshot designer. I couldn't make the brand pop off. We did 2 brands. I did it for 7 years. Kind of fell into video production, but through that, like I sort of like found the success and like the money, and like not saying I'm super rich or anything, but like found like the money and to be able to do this full time and meet celebrities and get all the cool experiences, hop on some tours, do some travel, have money to travel, have money to, spend more time training and buy more expensive gear and equipment to be able to do my job better, to be able to compete at a higher level, develop skills. So like I have higher level people asking me to come jump on their projects. Like, like I never expected that, right? So let me impart some wisdom. And even if you're a bit older attempting this or whatever, you got to be realistic about yourself, how many hours you have in a week to actually attempt doing this and making it your thing. But yeah, just sort of be real with yourself and ask yourself what you really want out of this, and how much time you can commit, and what category you fit into, and also if you just love doing it, that's fine, but like kind of taper your expectations, because you are competing against a bunch of people who are doing it full time and can maybe take like a larger financial risk than you, right? So that's it. All right, well guys, if you like my little artist advice, like and subscribe, and that's it. See you guys.